Counter-Strike Global Offensive is not the game that it used to be. Really, load up an old version of the game and you'll be hard-pressed to find anything that's the same as in the game today. So when people say that the game doesn't run the same as it used to, well yeah, that's to be expected. But it also makes it harder to pinpoint which feature or features are responsible for these differences. It's immediately assumed to be the game's fault, but it could also be your computer, especially if you've been using the same one since the game came out 9 years ago, and particularly if you haven't reformatted. But diagnosing that kind of stuff is a whole other kettle of fish. So in this video, to keep things simple, I will only be testing Counter-Strike's changes, using the same computer configuration throughout. But first, this video is sponsored by NordVPN. In just a click of a button, change your internet location to elsewhere in the world to enhance your internet anonymity and to access content unavailable in your home region. No longer will you click on a link to YouTube only to be told it isn't available in your region. Because with NordVPN, the world is your region. To the sites you visit, you can appear as American, English, or even French. See which regional TV and movie exclusives each of these gifts you. So what if some of this is in a foreign language? You watch English stuff with subtitles on already. Start up the ladder towards 7 proxies by using NordVPN to hide your home IP to protect you against targeted IP attacks. Let Nord servers swallow those up instead. And if you're already enjoying these VPN benefits, gift it to a loved one or someone you really like with NordVPN's ongoing Christmas deal, which gives you unlimited VPN usage for a full 2 years and 1 month extra for $79. Check out the link in the video's description. So how do we get access to the old version of Counter-Strike? Simple. Right-click on CSGO in Steam, Properties, Betas, and you'll find a demo viewer version, which is there just to be able to run old demos of the game before a certain update presumably corrupted them in some way. This version of the game isn't release day, but it's close. It doesn't even have deathmatch mode. So I'm just going to refer to this as 2012 Counter-Strike, even though it might have been as late as January 2013. And I will be comparing this old version with the frame rates from today's version of the game, here at the end of 2021. I'm testing all this on my good old Ryzen 2200G computer. Its graphics performance is about as fast as a mid-range computer from 2012, but because it's got a quad-core processor, that makes it one of the fastest that was out back then. But by today's standards, it's absolutely baseline performance, and if your computer performs worse than this one does, then it is time to consider upgrading. Time to test it in Counter-Strike. Every single defuse map that was in the game in 2012 has since received a facelift, which will cause them to run slower. But how much slower? Aztec was one of the maps remade for CSGO, representing 2012 graphical and performance standards. Ancient is the latest Valve-made map, representing 2020 standards. The fact they both happen to share the same setting is a happy coincidence. So I tested Aztec running on 2012 CSGO against Ancient running on current CSGO. And because I want to give the PC a fighting chance, I used low settings and a low resolution. And running about on both maps, I concluded that performance has halved. Remember, I'm comparing a release day map played on an old version of Counter-Strike against the newest map on the latest version of Counter-Strike. So I think this represents the greatest drop you can expect, and it won't be so pronounced on, say, Dust 2 or Inferno. But this test confirms what we all suspected, that the new maps, models and everything else all add up, and they do take their toll on our computer's frame rates. But I was pleasantly surprised to still be getting 100 plus FPS on Ancient when using such a slow PC. I'm sure it would drop quite a bit lower if other players were also on the server, but I think you can appreciate that it would be hard to benchmark this when nobody's playing on the old version of the game anymore. Let's see what happens if we keep the map the same. This proved more difficult than you'd expect. Trying to port new maps to the old version of Counter-Strike made it crash and behave all weird, so I decided only to test with maps bundled in the old version of the game. I chose Dust 2 SE. This was meant to be the competitive version of Dust 2, and it lacked fancy graphics like wires, fog and debris on the floor. Valve soon abandoned the idea of SE versions, combining the best of both map versions together for everybody to enjoy. But I suspect this was also done to make Valve's life easier when it came to updating the map. So I started by benchmarking it without any HUD or weapons visible at all. And with both high and low settings, Dust 2 SE runs 5% slower today than it did in 2012 CSGO. So not a huge difference, but it's definitely there. Since I used the same map, I assumed that these differences must have been from the engine and feature bloat over the years. However, I bothered to take some screenshots, and if we compare these, you'll notice that there are a few graphical differences. I promise you, I'm using the exact same version of the map. I literally copied the map file over. To understand why there are differences, we need to look at these notices on the wall just here. Here they are when viewed in 2012. And here they are in today's version of Counter-Strike. The same texture today is literally different from how it was when the game was released. And just in case you were wondering, when a map is remade it uses new and different textures, so that isn't what's causing this change. And to prove it's the same texture, and not just two different ones where one got removed, we can find the exact same arrangement of notices on the wall here in Bombsite B, and again the same one has been removed when we jump to modern CSGO. So what's fair for me to do here? As well as keeping the map file the same, should I also somehow replace the textures from one version of the game with the other to try and make for a fairer comparison? Or is it better just to draw the line here and to admit that everything has changed since the game came out? Even the stuff that we thought would have remained the same, like textures and props with the same file names and locations. Turning on the weapon model dropped a few more frames, but it wasn't too bad, considering that the player's glove models look much better than they used to. It feels like I'm getting my money's worth out of this 1 or 2% drop, given how much of the screen this hand takes up. The drop could also partly be from all those custom weapon skins that are in the game these days, which certainly uses up more storage space, and probably a bit of RAM as well. And last we'll turn on the HUD, and this is where things get interesting. Performance dropped quite considerably at low settings, down now to just 89% of the frame rate we would have got in the same situation in 2012. But when we jump to high settings and resolution, the opposite occurs. New CSGO actually claws back some performance. It was running 7% slower than old CSGO when just the weapon model was drawn, but with the HUD drawn as well, it's now only 5% slower than old CSGO was. So maybe the game's more modern HUD style is designed to be less of a burden on your computer when it's in a GPU limited state. For this PC of mine, this seems to be the one area where new CSGO is more efficient than it was at release. Silver lining and all that. It's long been suggested that people with lots of custom skins and players on their friends list get better frame rates by jumping to a new empty account. So I put this to the test. I compared my 3clicks Philip account, which has 1,000 things in the inventory and more friends than I can eat, against my FreeClicks Philip account, which I made to test the free edition of the game when it came out, and nothing more. These were both tested on the current version of Counter-Strike because obviously 2012 CSGO didn't have an inventory like it does today. I will say that this testing took me a while to do, but I can quickly summarise the results by saying that I found no evidence that an empty account runs better than a full one does. In fact, it ran very slightly slower. So there we have it. In order to win, you need to have lots of friends and lots of custom skins. I did only log out and log in between these tests though. Maybe I should have completely reinstalled Counter-Strike just to be sure it was fair. But then I don't think people are doing that every time they switch between accounts. While I'm bad-mouthing all my testing, I'll just say yes, I know all my testing so far has been done on an empty map, which isn't representative of a proper match. I should be testing with bullets flying about everywhere, because the bullet penetration system has been updated since 2012, so it could make a difference. There should be characters running about everywhere, which have also had their models updated, as have their hitboxes, and even the bot systems have changed since then. So to try and summarise all of these changes in one go, I ran Arms Race Game mode for 5 minutes on the map Shoots, to get an average frame rate over that period. I will say that even the Arms Race Game mode has changed since 2012, but since Deathmatch didn't exist back then, it seemed like the right game mode to test. I ran at 720p, low settings, with no HUD visible of any sort. I think bots are more process intensive than real players are, since the game has to think for them, but it's better than nothing, isn't it? And the results were significant. The important thing here is the average FPS, which has dropped from 140 to 107. That's a big drop, given that we're comparing what really should be the same gameplay. Our performance is now only 77% of what it was when the game came out. In conclusion, CSGO has got more demanding to run in the 9 years since it came out. There are two ways that you can look at this. The first is to say that a game that was playable on release day should remain playable forevermore on the same hardware. And if you believe this, then I get your point, because historically, this has always been the case with games. Or even the opposite, where games get more optimised as time goes on. But my opinion on the matter is slightly different. 9 years have passed. The world moves on. The game is multiplayer. It only has value for as long as people are still playing it. So it isn't fair to compare it with what you'd expect from a fixed single-player experience. Counter-Strike has a much longer and more invested lifespan than one of those. It's something that people can follow as an esport, or to play in waves with breaks in between, spanning months or even years. I see it as a service, so in that sense it would be better to compare it with the likes of World of Warcraft, which evolves over time, or to see it as an alternative to a game series which may get a new version that you have to buy every year. And I don't think the changes that Counter-Strike has received were changes for change's sake. They have been done to keep it relevant and modern. If it was still in the state today that it was in 2012, I don't think it would be anywhere near as popular. I believe they have made the game significantly better in both gameplay and graphics, and computers have advanced since the game's release as well. greatly outpacing the growing demands of Counter-Strike, to the point where even a bare-bones budget rig like the 4-year-old APU I've been testing in this video can still output decent frame rates, without there being a graphics card in sight, which is just as well because right now there isn't a graphics card in sight. So it really boils down to whether you think the game's updates have improved it enough to justify, and whether you'd still be here and would have spent as much time and money on the game if they hadn't been done. And Merry Christmas.